Linda?
Dear Lord, thank you that you make all things new. Thank you for the victory and power in your name. Thank you that you hold the keys over death, that by your might Jesus was raised from the grave, paving the way for us to have new life with you. Thank you that you had planned and that you made a way. We confess our need for you, fresh new again. We ask that you renew our hearts and minds and lives for the days ahead. We pray for your refreshing over us. Keep your words of truth planted firm within us. Help us to keep focused on what is pure and right. Give us the power to be obedient to your word. And when the enemy reminds us where we have been, hissing his lies and attacks our way, we trust that your voice speaks louder and stronger, reminding us we are safe with you, that your purposes and plans will not fail. We ask that you will be our defense and rear guard, keeping our way clear, removing the obstacles and covering the pitfalls. Lord, lead us on your level ground. Since your light in us, through us, over us, may we make a difference in this world for your glory and purposes. Set your way before us. May all your plans succeed. We may reflect your peace and hope to a world that so desperately needs your presence and healing. Thanks be to you, God, for your indescribable gift. To you be glory and honor on this holy weekend and forever. In Jesus' name, amen. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Linda. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. A few quick announcements. Please, you need to be quiet, particularly in the back. Turn off cell phones and be quiet. Okay. No, not yet, Linda. Not yet. Okay. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have a packed crowd, so we're going to skip my commentary, and we're also going to do very little PCP business. First, I do want to say this week is Holy Week. Today is Holy Thursday. So a special thanks for those of you that joined us. Folks, we're still looking for some additional locations to put up 4x8 signs to promote Berks County Patriots. We can have smaller signs as well if you have a location. We're also looking for people to print the lettering on some of these signs. So if you know a location, or if you're willing to do some printing, we certainly would appreciate that. Now, you can still buy 50/50 raffle tickets. We will have the drawing at the end. You can still purchase them, just be quiet. Good news is, we sold the first 100 gun raffle tickets. So instead of waiting to the end of the night like we usually do, we're going to have the drawing now. So I'm going to turn this over to Linda. Have fun. They can't hear you, Linda.
Will you draw the winning ticket?
Who is Edna, Linda?
Edna is the chair captain.
That's right. She's in charge. She's the chairman of the chair, whatever. What do you have?
Oh my goodness.
No. Okay. Okay, folks, the winner, by the way, gets a Ruger American 9mm 17 magazine, 70 round magazine, equivalent or $400 cash. So someone wants to text her, that's great. Thank you, Linda. Now, for those of us that did not win, and of course that's everybody but one, you don't lose hope. We started our second 100 ticket, so you still have another chance if you want to partake in that. Folks, I mentioned previously that we are having some financial difficulties. We're unable to do some of the things that we want to do. This was put in a letter that was sent to our membership. And folks, I'm very pleased to tell you, I want to thank those of you that have responded with a donation. It is very well appreciated, honestly it is. We're very thrilled with that. Also, I want to thank any of you that are purchasing raffle tickets or gun tickets. All of that helps. Unlike some other groups, we do not charge an annual membership fee. So everything that we need to do, renting this hall is not cheap. Everything we need to do has to come from this meeting or your generosity. So we appreciate your donation. Thank you very much. Ed's not here, but we usually have t-shirts for sale. If you, next time you're here, if you would do that, that would be great. I have 3 announcements before we get into the main event. The first is the March for Life Rally. 9th annual March for Life Rally. It's May 5th. Quiet in the back, please. May 5th at 2 o'clock. Now, Helen McMinn, who just happened to win the gun raffle, gave a very passionate plea on this last week. What I'd like to do, just quickly, I want to read you a couple things from the abortion bill that was passed in New York. You know, the one where they were singing and dancing and having a good time? Just let me read you a couple things. Let's go quickly. It's called the Reproductive Health Act. Potentially, it allows for the most extreme form of abortion without any serious restrictions. 2, it removes anything in a New York law that extends any protection to the child before birth. The new law does not contain any meaningful restriction that is likely to ever prevent an abortion. 4, they redefine the term human person to exclude unborn children. Again, please, quiet in the back. 5, these result in a change in the penal code system, which means that domestic violence resulting in a loss of pregnancy can no longer be prosecuted to the extent it was previously. And finally, last one, they repealed Section 4164. Without 4164, the public health law is now silent on the status of an infant born alive during an abortion. Folks, I'm going to let it to your imagination to visualize what is going to happen to that live, innocent child. Think about that. God, have mercy on us.
Amen.
Okay, second announcement. We have a Second Amendment rally in Harrisburg the very next day. That's May 6th at 10 o'clock. If any of you are interested in going, we could put a bus together. We usually don't get the best participation with that, but if you have an interest in going, we could put something together. We're talking at this point, 15 people, maybe about $15 a person. If you have an interest, please see Judy in the back. Also, if anyone came in here and did not sign in, that you're not a member, please do so. I know it was pretty hectic in the back. Now, I just want to... Too many papers. There's several anti-Second Amendment bills in Harrisburg. 3 of them, SB 90, HB 1075, and HB 768. I just want to read one sentence from HB 768. Now, this particular bill was sponsored by Democrat Representative Angel Cruz. I'm quoting. I am proposing the creation of a firearm registration within the Pennsylvania State Police. Upon application and approval, firearm owners will be given a registration certificate valid for 1 year for each registered firearm they own. Folks, you need to digest a little bit, and there's a lot more in the bill. But basically, they are taking our Second Amendment, our guaranteed constitutional Second Amendment right, and they're reducing it to a privilege that can be taken away by the government at any time. Folks, that is not what the Second Amendment was designed to do. It certainly wasn't designed for to go deer hunting. It was designed for we the people to have an opportunity to have a defense against the government, and God forbid we ever have to do that. So folks, we do need your help on this. Hopefully that angered you a little bit. If it did, please join us. One final announcement. I am very pleased to announce that Run Rothenberger, with Rothenberger in shorts, is sponsoring tonight's meeting. This is the 3rd year in a row that Run Rothenberger has sponsored a meeting. Now, folks, Linda and I are in the real estate business. Most of our properties are with Run Rothenberger for a very good reason. Firstly, he's an excellent agent. They have good rates as well. Great service. Now, I'm sure you all have insurance. It wouldn't hurt to stop by and just talk to Run and get a quote. It might be helpful. At the same time, remember, Run Rothenberger is supporting the Berks County Patriots. So maybe give an opportunity to help us as well. Okay, that's my announcement. I'm about to turn the meeting over to Rod. Are you ready, Rod? Yes, thumbs up, but he's still riding. I'm not sure about that. Well, you can listen at least. Folks, I want to thank Rod sincerely for all the work that he did and the others on the legislative committee. Unless you've gone through this, which you haven't, you cannot imagine many hours going through it. 100 emails is nothing. Now, what I do want to do, Rod, I do want to thank you, as I said. I have an email going out tomorrow morning. Just got to push the button. And it's going to say something like, Rod, take a sabbatical. Now, before you get too excited about that, I want to let you know, no pay. There's no pay. So don't think you're taking a sabbatical so you can get paid. Okay. And secondly, it's a short one. Go do some trout fishing, maybe cross off 1 or 2 items on your honey-do list and make Ann happy, but we want you back in a reasonable period of time. So folks, let's turn the rest of the meeting over to our Berks County Patriots Legislative Chairman, Rodney Miller. There you go, buddy. Go time.
As long as I get the same pay during sabbatical that I get today, I'll be happy. Okay, folks. Yes, good evening, folks. We have a full agenda tonight, and unlike Alex Trebek, I'm intending to have the mic with the candidates and not with me, but sometimes I do run off and I'll have somebody give me a flag there. That's why I put down at the table here. First of all, a little house cleaning so we understand the game plan here. Like I think I'm paraphrasing Tom Hanks, remember the baseball movie with the women? Said there's no crying in baseball. Well, there's no booing in politics either. So we want to try to be respectful for those that take exception to their view. We still want to let them have expressed their view. Here's what I will allow. If a response is complete and you support their view, I will allow applause. It will give the candidate know that it's resonating with the voters. Ed Bender, our timer here. If the applause goes a little long, he's going to give you the red flag so we can keep moving. But at least the applause, for whatever period of time, will let the candidate know where you stand with this issue. Now, there'll be a lot of issues that will just be factual and it won't require any kind of reaction. Do you understand that?
A little closer, okay. I gave you the guidelines for you folks. I'll give the guidelines for the candidates in due time. Now, we have two offices with opponents in their campaign. However, only one candidate for each of those two offices chose to be here tonight. I expect that they didn't want to be intimidated by knowledgeable voters, but so be it. Those that did show up will get their opportunity to be heard. Our first item on the agenda, though, will be the candidates running for, Democrat candidates running for county commissioner. And as I lay the ground rules for the Democrats, and they can work their way up to the table, I'll give some specifics. First of all, what I did is I asked in advance questions for the candidates so that I had an opportunity to look them over and eliminate duplicates and possibly modify a few. The tag's already been there, so pick your seat that matches your tag or swap the tags and suit the seat. Either way, thank you. I will ask most of the questions directly to the incumbent because he's the fellow should have the knowledge relative to the question. However, the challengers will get every opportunity to respond likewise. And if I see one where I think a challenger has enough knowledge or they did their homework, they may get the first crack at the question as well. So, all right, first of all, we'll introduce the three candidates. We have, in no particular order, although I do have our lady candidate last, only because she wasn't sure she was going to be here, so I didn't want to mess up my program. However, be that as it may, challenger Morell is first, and I'll give him the mic for 2 minutes of opening comments.
Can you hear me? Yep. Hi there, everybody. My name is Mike Morell. That's the right way to pronounce my name. It's spelled with an I and not an E. That's the right way to spell it. That's okay if you spell it wrong. It's okay if you say it wrong, as long as you vote for me in May and then in November. I'm running as a Democrat, and I know there are not a whole lot of Democrats in the room, but you know what? I think that we have a lot more in common than we have separated us. I'm a patriot. I love my country. I love this constitutional republic. I stand for the Constitution, as I know you do. That's one thing that we have in common. Like you, I believe that every dollar that the taxpayers bring into the county is the taxpayers' money. It's your money, it's my money, and it needs to be respected and taken care of properly. That's something that we have in common. I also believe that public information is public information. That means that all the information that's in government should be available to us unless there's a legal reason why it should be prohibited. That's something also that we have in common. I also believe that our best is ahead of us. We have an incredible history in this country and in this county. A lot that we can be proud of. I'm proud of this country, I'm proud of this county. But there's an awful lot more that we can be doing together to make things better. Is that right? I think so. That's something else that we have in common. I'm here tonight because I'm committed to making sure that we listen to everybody. One of the slogan for my campaign is a Berks that works for all of us. That means a lot of different things. It means that a Berks County, it means rural, it it means urban. It means conservatives and liberals. One of the things that I will commit to you is that when I'm county commissioner, that I will be here on a regular basis. I will listen to you. We may not always agree, but I can tell you one thing. I will be here to listen and take seriously the opinions of everybody in the county. Mike Morell, the county commissioner.
We have a problem with our second mic, so we're going to swap them back and forth as best we can. However, the incumbent, Kevin Barnhart, will now give his 2-minute presentation.
Thank you, Berks Patriots. Good evening, and a real opportunity here to explain who I am. I've been your Democratic County Commissioner for the past 12 years, and I do believe experience matters. I've experienced for over 36 years in private industry, the last 12 being one of your county commissioners. I'll tell you a few accomplishments. Taxes increased only half of the rate of inflation. We use a 5-year budget forecast, and many other counties don't even understand what a 5-year budget forecast is. We understand the importance of money. AAA stable bond rating, the best you can possibly get as a bond rating for this county. We're in strong financial shape. Saved over $100 million in budget cuts and paring down programs over the last 12 years. 300 less positions in the county government over the last 12 years through efficiency, through technology, and proper justification of new positions. The merger of Red Rose and BARDA, the mass transit agencies, saved us $2.5 million. I was at the forefront of those changes. Our unemployment rate is at 3.8%. We can certainly do better in the city of Reading, which is about 3% higher than the county average. Work very close with the Greater Reading Economic Partnership and the Chamber. Hardly endorse investing in new jobs and job creation and job retention. I work with many of the site selectors and the folks that come into town from other states and from other countries. I've been to China, and we want to continue the relationship with China to try to grow businesses here in Berks County. Met with folks from Ireland, from Bangladesh, and many other countries to try to bring good-paying jobs here. We're going to have a new employer down Route 61. Chris Brassler is the developer right across from Bob Fisher Chevrolet. It's going to be a $100 million bill and recycling plastic water bottles. 120 good-paying jobs right here in Berks County. It's hard work, and I'm just a guy to do it. Been working hard at 12 years, and I'd like to have your support for the next 4 years. Thank you, and God bless you.
We now have a city councilwoman running for county commissioner, and I now let you know. Donna Reed.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. My name is Donna Reed, and I think it's a wonderful life here in Berks County. I love the name of that movie. Anyhow, I have been a lifelong Berks County resident. My family's roots go back to about the early 18th century. If you think of Reed's Church, Rice Church, that was some of my early family. Many of my family come from Schuylkill County, just north of here. I was born in Reading, raised in Muhlenberg Township. Thank you, Kevin, for letting us do jobs in my native township. I've been on city council for about the past 2 decades. With a brief interruption, I went back to the business. Channel 69 News Berks Edition, you're probably all familiar with that. And many of you may have known me from my days at the Reading Eagle. My colleague Chuck Gardner sits up there as your photographer. I spent most of my life covering Berks County, meeting people, all corners of Berks County. I think you guys know me and I know you. I'm running for county commissioner because I believe that both the rural roots that I experienced growing up on a farm and the urban core go hand in hand. I hear so many people say, oh, City of Reading, build a wall around it. Well, I'm old enough to remember when the City of Reading and the people of the City of Reading bought our produce. When my dad and my uncles, my grandfather, who I did not know, but they all went and hucked the roots in Northwest Reading, that area I now represent. And I remember thinking all the rich people lived in Reading. Well, you know, times have changed. But just as the city supported us and enabled us to keep our farm during difficult times for two generations, I've always felt it was my role in life to be a public servant and give back to that city. But you don't give back to the city without giving back to municipalities and the county at large. I'm from Muhlenberg Township. I see that area having its challenges, but growing again. I also see the work that my colleague, my county colleague Kevin Barnhart has done over the years. I appreciate that, and we all work hand in hand. I don't think that party labels are all that important when it comes to the well-being of our local community. I'm married to a Republican who's sitting back there with my signs, and I think we can all work together very well. I thank you for letting me be here. I really appreciate your time.
Okay. We heard the platforms of the three candidates, one incumbent, two challenged. I should point out, there's actually 5 Democrats running, and 2 of them did not show up, and I won't even mention their name. You can't be here, you can't be heard. However, the way it works in the county election, 2 of the Democrats survived the primary, as well as 2 Republicans, we'll hear later, will survive the primary. So there'll be 2 Democrat, 2 Republican on the ballot, and you'll vote for 2, but 3 will get elected. Whoever comes in third on either party will be the third commissioner. That's the way the system works, so interesting concept. I'm not sure if we're the only county does that, but. Okay, we're going to try to fire as many questions as we can. It works 2 ways. Either you alleviate in the answer, and it reduces the amount of questions, or you can be brief in your answer, making your point, and I'll get more questions in. We'll go whatever works. Okay. Well, so I've got a couple of softball questions to get started to make it easier on you. So you won't be held accountable, actually. But my first question, softball as it is, voter ID. I don't know the actual rules right now, but those working in polls have been told by the county commissioners not to ask for voter ID, and they're not to show them. On the other hand, everybody's getting their picture taken for voter ID. So I don't know what the rules are, but it's a confusing thing, and it'd be nice to know if there's any real understanding, so voters and poll workers know do they or do not show voter ID. Anyone wants to take a crack at it first?
As I recognize the state law, it's required if you're a first-time voter in a precinct or it's your first time you're voting. If you move to a different precinct or you're just started to register to vote, you're required to show ID, but beyond that, you're not required by Pennsylvania law. It's not the county commissioners in Berks County telling you you can't show ID. That's not true.
Well, I defer to Kevin on in terms of understanding the law, but certainly that is beyond the commissioner level, and he is correct. I've, not worked at the polls, but campaigned often enough to know that when the first-time voter comes in, Reading, as you know, has a very transient population, to show that ID or else go for a provisional ballot. And that sort of ensures everyone's right and protection.
Okay, next question, a little bit of softball, but it's an annoyance to a lot of people. In fact, it's an annoyance to me. And it's time when we're being politically correct or all-inclusive. I want to know who or what directly decided when calling the election office, the message says, press 1 for Spanish, followed by an announcement in Spanish, and then we finally get to English. Why don't we simply have press 1 for English, and if you want to continue, go ahead. But if you want to hang around for the Spanish, that's up to you. But we could turn this thing around. It makes it look like we're being oversensitive to the minorities, when in fact, I think we've taken it a step too far. What's your comment?
Well, as you know, in the city of Reading, our population is anywhere in excess from 65 to 70% Latino. So I can tell you that to some degree I'm at a disadvantage because I do not speak Spanish, and I took in high school, I took Spanish, German, and Latin. I can get by in German. I can't get by in Latin anymore, but Spanish would have been very helpful to me. And I think as everyone shakes their heads, you have to remember that in this county, when it started out, English was not the language. Der Adler, the Eagle that I worked for was Der Adler. It was the German language newspaper. The German language dominated this county through the end of the 19th century into the early 20th century. I think there's good in everyone. I wish everyone would learn English because that seems to be the universal language. When I travel to Europe, knowing English is the best thing to do. However, I'm not going to condemn anyone. I'm in this election to be positive.
Federal law requires us to have all of our information available in languages where there's a significant percentage of the population that speaks that. So it makes sense that in Berks County, where a lot of people speak Spanish, that we would have Spanish as one of the options. I don't see that as a problem. If it's a matter of waiting a few seconds because the Spanish is first, that's an easy fix. I mean, I don't see what the problem is if you flip the English or Spanish. But having both languages is something that's perfectly acceptable. It's the reality of our situation. And as Donna said, in our county, for a significant portion of our history, German was a predominant language. There were German public schools in this county. That's something that I think we need to recognize. We have people who are coming to our country who are building our county, making this a really strong, diverse place, and I'm pretty excited about that. I think that that's a strength for our community, not something that we should be dismissing. Follow up? Sure.
What would be wrong with the Hispanics?
Nothing, just like there was nothing wrong with Germans learning English. Most Germans in this county didn't learn English at first. They did eventually. And that's the case of the most successful Hispanic immigrants, people coming from Puerto Rico, who are not immigrants, people coming from Spanish-speaking countries, the most successful ones do learn English. That's exactly what we should be encouraging and what people in the Hispanic community want.
Quick answer is I don't want to be the one that cites laws all the time. The federal law requires us to have Spanish ballots in any precinct that has more than at least 5% Spanish surnames. I have no problem with that. About 70+% of our population in Reading, and in many of our, well, in Reading it's Spanish, but in many of our suburban communities, Muhlenberg, Exeter, and others, we have Spanish interpreters at the polls. We need to encourage people to vote, not discourage them from voting. And yes, there are language barriers, and yes, many, many people that I know personally have come here from foreign lands and have learned our language. My backdoor neighbor's from Haiti. He is more fluent in English than I am. But I think it's a generational thing. If there's elderly people coming here from Latino-based countries, they may not learn the language just the same as Germans and Polacks and Italians didn't learn, but as generations pass it down, they go to school, they need to go to work. It's a process that we're all undertaking here. And I welcome the immigration because I think it's healthy for any country, and it really helps us to solidify job opportunities for people and make us a greater community. Thank you.
I knew this would happen with one microphone. Happens every time. I'm not here to be argumentative, but the question was, why must we, as an English-speaking country, have to listen to a message in Spanish before to get to the language of the country? That's all. I don't care if Spanish information is there. It's fine. Spanish questions, but we'll leave it go at that because elected officials respond accordingly, and that's fine. Next question is on marijuana. And I'm going to read, will legalization of recreational marijuana be a cost saving if the police are not continually chasing low-level dealers and users, or will this be the gateway drug, like opioids, to make a more serious offense and a drug problem? Do you support making recreational marijuana legal?
These are easy questions. These are easy ones. Anyhow, my feeling is the same as it was in October of 2017 when City Council approved by a 4-3 vote a measure to legalize small quantities. very small quantities of marijuana possession. In the city of Reading, we have bigger issues to deal with. In the county of Berks, we have bigger issues to deal with. Do I encourage people to smoke marijuana? No. Myself, when I was a kid in college, I thought hay was burning in our dorm. That's how naive I was about it. I saw the good and the bad of it. I don't think it's with anything else. Moderation. You shouldn't drink a lot and drive. You shouldn't smoke marijuana and drive. I don't believe it's a gateway drug. I do believe it would save some costs. It would save some incarceration of folks who could better do community service. And I don't see it as the worst thing in the world. So yes, small quantities I don't think should be points of reference for arrest.
So I certainly support the medical use of marijuana for folks that have some severe medical issues. I think our state did it correctly by learning from other states and have done it legally and through a process. We have to qualify through the state to have a card in order to get that medicine, especially children with seizures. I mean, you see a child with 50, 60 episodes in an hour. There's something that can help them. I'm all for that. With respect to recreational marijuana, the jury's still out for me, quite frankly. There's not enough research and information about the general use of marijuana. I know it affects a child's brain 25 years and under. The brain does not fully develop to at least 25 years of age. And we have entirely too many DUI arrests on the street, so as it is with prescription drugs and with alcohol. And I think compounding that with marijuana, and there's really no test for that, but person driving impaired is a danger on the highway. There's one thing, people do what they do in the confines of their own home. Our district attorney in May will actually put forth a issue where if you're caught with a small quantity of marijuana, under 30 grams, which is about a joint, I believe, from what I'm told, if you agree to a 3-hour educational program to counsel chemical abuse, you will not go through the criminal justice system, which costs all you thousands of dollars. There's fines and costs, but to set up a court to have petty crimes of marijuana to prosecute cost us entirely too much money. We have to think this thing through here in Pennsylvania. I'm not for or against the recreational use, but I think it needs an awful lot. There's been studies and analysis in Colorado and in Oregon. The church, as far as I'm concerned, there's still a lot of questions to be answered. Thank you.
I'm for the legalization of marijuana. And here's why. For the same reason that I think that alcohol should remain legal. The arguments that have been used against the legalization of marijuana are the same kind of arguments that were used during the Prohibition era against alcohol. Nobody wants to see anybody driving while they're impaired. There are already laws in place to make sure that that doesn't happen. The same laws that are in place now would be in place if it were legalized. Here's how we can make sure that we do it in the right way. And I think we have a unique situation here in Pennsylvania that we can do that other states can't do. Number one, when we encourage the growth of marijuana locally in Pennsylvania so that everything is grown here, that it's regulated, that we know exactly what's happening with our own Pennsylvania farmers who can make a profit and do that in state, and so that we, local folks, can make the decision about whether or not that happens. Number two, the processing of it takes place in state. That we also make sure that we do it the right way, and that instead of having some big corporation someplace else doing it, we have local businesses doing that. Small entrepreneurs all over Pennsylvania making a profit and doing it right. And then number three, where we have something that's different than other states, we have wine and spirit shops where there's no profit motive in the selling of alcohol. Likewise, we can do the same thing for marijuana. When people come in, there's no profit motive in the store to sell it to somebody who is underage or is not eligible. So that way that we have all of the opportunities to regulate it in state, we have the opportunity to make a profit for it in state, we have the opportunity to make tax it at all three different levels, which would do an incredible amount of balancing our budget and making sure that some of that money comes back into local and county coffers. Legalizing.
I'm going to start with Mr. Barnard on this one. Another gripe type question. There's obviously a problem with the county paying much of the bill for the constable billing system that is currently in place. As a commissioner, what can be done to change this practice? Is it the fault of the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency, victim reimbursement system? Is it the fault of the legislature for allowing the ACCD to run amok and allow this abuse? What action would you take as a commissioner to do something about the tremendous amount of money being spent or paid by taxpayers for constable fees?
Thank you. We are taking action. There was an initial meeting with the court system. We're going to follow meetings with the court system with this whole constable issue. Yes, there is a very high amount that's not paid back. There's a multitude of reasons. We really want to dig into the details. I'm not going to speculate on what they are, but I can surmise some of them are some of the fees, maybe somewhat excessive, that are paid out to the constables. So we have to petition our legislature for some reform on the amount of money that's paid out. And I also think there's a real poverty issue with respect to people that are fined and charged court costs and can't afford food for their children, but continue to get fined for, say, parking tickets. So that number of 800,000 to 400,000, a lot of that I truly believe is an issue of poverty. But we're going to bring all the folks to the table. The courts, the MDJs, the constables, folks from the public. We are only a piece of the actual, we are the ones paying it out through the controller's office, and I'm not happy about paying it out. But there's got to be a logical solution to trying to pare that number down. You're never going to collect 100%, believe me. There are law-abiding people out there that pay their bills, and there are some that won't. But I think if we can lower that number to something that's more recognizable, I think we'll all be better off.
I think Kevin is nailed on the head, and I have to thank the Running Eagle for their shedding light on this. The importance of transparency, the importance of the media being our eyes and ears is critical. Not really sure that there's blame to put per se. I think Kevin's point of reference, the poverty issue is significant, especially in the city. I can tell you the district I represent, Northwest Reading, when I go to a community supper and I see people cheering because their friends were able to move out of living in a car and now living in a small trailer in Lebanon County, and they're veterans, we have an issue. We have a huge issue. It's not just poverty in the city, but it's concentrated there. Hence, you see the paybacks that don't occur and the costs that are generated onto all of us. So there's more to this than meets the eye. I appreciate Kevin and all the work the county and the state are doing regarding this.
I can almost say ditto to both Donna and Kevin, and absolutely thank you to the Reading Eagle for the incredible work that they're doing. Let's hope that we don't lose the Reading Eagle. And thank you to Kevin and the others who are putting together a study of what's going on based on what happened with the Reading Eagle. Here are two things that they didn't say that I would just add, not to disagree with either of them, but we need to control the costs. And there are a couple of ways that we can do that. One is to look at what is done in Lancaster County, for instance, where they turn it over to the Sheriff's Department. And so the sheriffs serve the warrants, and it saves a lot of money. Another possibility is instead of doing a fee for service, we give our constables a regular salary so that they perform a job based on the responsibilities that they're supposed to be doing. We don't do anything else in government based on how much time you work. I wish that were the case. There would be some commissioners who would make a lot more money. There are some elected officials who would make a lot more money than others, and that might be a good way to make sure that people are doing their job. But county constables are one place where it's based on how much time you put in. I don't think that's the appropriate way to do that. I think it should be a flat salary for all constables.
Again, with one mic, I can't interrupt, but we're getting further along in our answers than we're going to have time for, but we'll keep going. Here's a hot button, and here's one I won't interrupt, but I'd sure like to have some answers. The majority, if not all, want our property taxes eliminated.
Amen.
There's an ongoing attempt to do this with school property taxes. Ignoring that boondoggle, Would existing laws allow for elimination of county property taxes? What impact would that have on the taxpayers? Would all commissioner candidates be in favor of this approach or not?
Yeah, I mean, the county is clearly responsible for different areas. It's responsible for prison, Berks, their buildings or parks, things like that, services. There has to be a means of paying for them. I'm not sure how much of that comes from the property taxes, but all of it does. So there would have to be a good alternative point of reference for that. As a homeowner, I'm not thrilled about property taxes. I know my husband isn't, he's out there shaking his head. I don't think any of us like that. We don't like our school taxes, we don't like our municipal taxes. But the reality is, if we drive on a road, if we use the Berks climb, if we walk through a park, someone's paying for it. So we have to find an equitable way to pay. I think property taxes were certainly based on 18th and early 19th century principles, when the landowners were the ones that could afford things. Now everyone's a property owner, more or less, with different degrees of income, so it taxes us in different rates. Some people can afford it, others cannot. I do think when you become a senior citizen, which I am now, it's hard to believe sometimes, I do think that once you reach the age of 65, there should be some cutback or some leniency on all property taxes. That's my belief. There should be something like that.
No time limit, right? I support the elimination of school property tax, always have, always will. Give you an example of my home. I pay $4,500 a year in school property tax. That's the number one bill. That's the one that scares the bejesus out of me. I pay $1,000 to the county. I pay almost $1,000 in my township with fire tax and light tax and hydrant tax. But it's that big one that hurts me, but it devastates senior citizens. Those who are on fixed incomes, it's terrible. So if the state legislature would get off their duff after 30 years of talking about this and meandering around this and get the thing solved, we'd have some people that could afford to stay in their homes. Most people leave their home and live with family members before they lose their home. You know, well, who lost their home? A lot of people get to the point where they just have to throw in the towel and go live with family members. That's just flat out wrong. With respect to county property tax, I don't believe you can move all the taxes to sales and income tax. Certainly school would be a huge possibility, but I don't necessarily think you should move county and township taxes to because then sales tax goes so high that it becomes a drag on people with low incomes. So right now we're paying 6% on some goods. You put that up to 8 or 9% on everything, you're starting to hit people on fixed income. So there's a cause and effect to shifting the tax burden. Thank you.
I moved to Pennsylvania about 30 years ago. And when I came here, I couldn't believe how complex and convoluted our tax system was. It's bizarre. I just don't understand how we got to this position. But we are in this position where we have all of these different taxes, and most people don't even know what taxes they end up having to pay or why they're having to pay them. So rather than just looking at property tax, I think we need to overhaul the entire tax system in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and make sure that there's a system in place that doesn't burden low-income and working families and people on fixed incomes the way that it is right now. Within property taxes themselves, there are lots of things that we can look at in other states and make sure that we find ways that we can lower the burden and make sure that there's a more diverse way of doing things. For instance, something that was explored a few years ago, maybe 15 years ago or so, something called land value taxation. Shifting the burden of property taxes not to what's going on top of the property, but the actual value of the land. What that does is it lowers the property taxes for residential property taxes, raises the property taxes for land where the value is much greater, where it's used for commercial purposes. You can do carve-outs. So we've been talking about people on fixed income. Make sure that there are carve-outs for senior citizens. Make sure that there are carve-outs for people who are on fixed income so that they don't have the burdens that are going on. Massachusetts has significant difference in the way that they do property taxes, and that they have classifications of property. So if you have residential property, it's taxed at one rate. If you have industrial land, it's taxed at a different rate. Agricultural land is taxed at a different rate, etc. In order to make sure that the property tax burden reflects what the property is being used for. So it lowers the property taxes on residences. And if you combine that with the kinds of things that I was just talking about, possibly doing land value taxation in addition to that, possibly doing carve-outs for senior citizens and those on fixed incomes, it will lower the burden and make it so that people don't have the burden that's making people lose their homes. And what a lot of people have said that they're actually just renting their property from the government.
I'm sorry, we're not going to get to hardly any more questions. This one microphone, I can't interrupt. I'm sorry, it's just the way it is. So when a politician bloviates, he bloviates. I ran for office. I'm not being defensive, but it's the way it is. That's right. Let me ask a very short answer. At least get something in here. Are you pro-life or pro-choice when you defund Planned Parenthood?
I think everyone makes their own choice. I personally would never have an abortion, never did, never would have, but I'm gonna let somebody else answer, the big guy or big girls.
I'm pro-choice and would not defund Planned Parenthood.
I'm pro-choice and also would not defund Planned Parenthood.
Ah, boy.
Trying to pick a good one here, folks. Just hang in there. Pardon me? Yeah, I have a county-related question. I'm afraid you're going to go for the rest of the night on this one. It's on the high. We'll get to it. As far as the line goes, I heard from uncorroborated information. I use that word because I heard it using the FISA issues. But anyway, I understand that management at the Heim is reluctant or don't even want to accept private pay patients because it's just too much bookwork that they're taking the Medicaid and the Medicare and filling the beds. And then there's a supplement amount of money needed to cover these costs where the taxpayers pick it up, where if it was a private insurance patient, it'd be totally covered. I guess my question is, can you explain how the Heim works and what information do I have that's in fact not correct?
Well, the firm we hired probably close to 10 years ago when Jerry Feudman announced his retirement is CHR. They own and operate nursing homes throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I can assure you that we encourage private pay. For the simple reason it's private pay, that's the highest rate we can charge. I think we just raised it last week, colleagues, $420 a day, somewhere in that range. So we're approximately for Medicaid, which is about 80% of the beds, is about $240. So that doesn't meet the needs of the budget to operate the nursing home. So I don't know where this fallacy came into place, but I'd love to hear from somebody who's had experience where they're trying to private pay in Berks Heim and have denied access, because we lose on Medicaid. And that's the whole issue for the last 2 years, whether we should get out of the nursing home business or stay in the nursing home business about Medicaid reimbursement rates. I'm sure my colleagues can go on for hours tonight about the lack of increase in Medicaid assistance over the last 10 years has been probably 6% when medical inflation has been over 20%.
Yeah, Kevin's absolutely right. But what I would add is that the purpose of the Berks Heim is not to make money. The purpose of the Berks Heim is to serve the most vulnerable among us who need that kind of service. So absolutely, if somebody's coming in and they want to do private pay, that is the highest rate, and that's going to make more money than the Medicaid reimbursement. But the people that the Berks Heim was set up for, and what it has historically been, is a place for the folks who can't afford the private pay. That's what we should be about. And if we lose a little bit of money doing that, I think that's absolutely the right thing to do. We don't worry about when we lose money on the jail. We don't worry about losing money on other services that we're doing as the county, because that's what we're supposed to be doing. Those are services that we're providing. The Berks Fund is a service. If we lose a little bit of money, so be it.
And I can speak to the fact that I have aunt and uncle who were private insurance. I have a colleague whose wife is there in the dementia unit, city council colleague, and that's private insurance, so I know that that's accepted. But I agree that if we don't look out for our most vulnerable, particularly in the last years of life, it speaks to us as a society. So I think none of us knows someday we may need something like that. So I think it's incumbent, and I appreciate the commissioners maintaining the public ownership of the fund through the next 5 years, but I hope that looking down the road, 20, 30, 50, I hope by the time my 2-year-old grandson's a senior citizen of Heritage, it's there and it's in public hands. So I know the formulas are difficult and they have to be worked out, but I have confidence that professionals will work that out, and the most vulnerable of our seniors will have this for generations.
Okay, we've about used up our time for questions. We're only halfway there, but we have to move on. The only footnote I'd like to say about the Heim, with the situation, the union practice where unions and government always seem to negotiate a better deal than unions and private industry. Consequently, the cost of operating the Heim is probably exceeds what private industry would cost for actually the same service. On top of that, we have the marginal or the supplemental money needed for Medicare and Medicaid patients. So the Heim needs to be looked at pretty thoroughly from a cost standpoint, because I think the privatization of the Heim is maybe not the best idea, but it's certainly going to open our eyes regarding costs. I'm going to have to ask each of you now for a 1-minute closing statement, and have to move on to our next event, our next yes, thank you.
I appreciate the fact that we may disagree on some issues, but I guarantee you that I am a very fiscally conservative person. I was born and raised by a frugal farmer, and you know what Pennsylvania Dutch farmers are. We were green before green was green, because we used things like the back of our pay envelopes to use them as notepads. So that was green before it was considered that. I've served as a Reading City Councilor for many years. It has been an exercise in challenge. We are exiting Act 47. We've watched our fiscal bottom line. We have a lot of challenges, but I have been proud to be a public servant. I am a terrible politician, as you will see going through this election, but I'm proud to be a good public servant. I listen to my constituents. I hear everyone out. And should I be fortunate enough to be one of your next commissioners, I guarantee you I will hear everything you have to say to me, and I will take it as seriously as I did as a reporter, and as I have as a city councilor of all these years. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. 60 years born and raised here in Berks County, 36 years in local government service, spent 24 proud years in the borough of West Reading, and now 12 years as your minority county commissioner. We all have different views on state and federal issues, on birth rights and gun rights and all those things. But who you're looking at here today, and then the next group coming up, are your county commissioners. We are not legislators. We're not lawmakers. We are people who run services and programs for the people who live in our county. And I'm proud of the fact that I've been serving with Mark and Christian, I can call them by their first name, for almost 12 years. And I've been the vice chair for 12 years as the minority. I've been the chair of the prison board for 12 years and now the chair of the election board for 4 years. You know why? We respect each other. We don't sit there and talk about the Wall Street Journal and what you saw on Fox News or what you saw on MSNBC or this, that, and the other thing, because those are not issues germane to county government. It's about running an effective and efficient county government for your local tax dollars. Thank you.
Thank you, Berks County Patriots, for putting this on. And while you know a little bit more about me now, you know that we disagree on a number of issues. Here's one thing that you need to know about me and why you should vote for me, even though you disagree on a lot of issues. I will be here with you. I will be somebody who will listen to you. I will make sure that I am at meetings where all kinds of people are participating. I'm not going to be a county commissioner just for Democrats or Republicans, not just for liberals or conservatives, not just for people in the city, not just for people in the rural areas. I will be there everywhere, listening, taking into consideration your views. That's what we need. That's what real leadership is about. That's a Democrat. Yeah, I'm a progressive, but more than that, I'm a Berks County resident who's a patriot just like the rest of you. Thank you for your time.
Well, okay, you heard the three Democrats that were here. Two of them did not show. Two of those three I would encourage you to consider for the primary, and the two survivors will then go and challenge against the Republicans, which we'll hear later. Thank you very much. Okay, we now have two people running for office where their opponents were apparently afraid to face an audience with astute knowledge politically, and I give both of them credit for willing to come here this evening to speak to us. I would first introduce Rebecca Warren. Rebecca is a candidate for Superior Court, and those of us that attended our meetings in the past know Ms. Warren as a familiar face, as a previous candidate for the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. All I can say, Ms. Warren, is you keep on running and we'll eventually get it right. Ms. Warren.
Hello, Berks County Patriots. It's good to be back. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. It's really important to be educated regarding the candidates who you're asking to consider for May 21st. And I think it's important for you to ask yourself two questions when deciding who to vote for on the Republican ticket for the Superior Court May 21st primary. And those two questions are this. Number one, what's your experience? And number two, what's your motivation for running? And I would like to answer both of those questions for you this evening. First, it's important to know that the Superior Court hears two different types of cases, civil and criminal. So the person that you're electing should have experience in both of those areas. I've been a court of attorney for the last 27 years, and thank you, and I've done both civil and criminal law, exactly the type of cases that the Superior Court decides. And during my 27-year career, I was also fortunate enough to be elected the Montour County District Attorney. And I was the first female elected to that position with 78% of the vote. We had 50% Republican, 50% Democrat registration. That was a very important time in my career because I was able to help a lot of people, a lot of victims. And I helped to create a team to reduce the trauma to child abuse victims. I worked with the Temple Institute of Protective Services with regard to elder abuse and fraud. But the other reason I'm running is the question that I want you to consider as well. What's the motivation? And many of you know that my motivation was a tragedy that occurred in my family. My father and my brother were victims of a double homicide by vehicle, and the person who killed them was not going to be charged because she had connections. That was really difficult for my family, not only because we lost our loved ones, but because I had worked in the justice system, and I knew the way that it was supposed to work. And what we encountered was a very broken justice system. It's broken, folks. And we need to send good, conservative, qualified, experienced individuals to the Superior Court this year. And I hope that you will consider me, because I am a true conservative. I've just been endorsed by the Pennsylvania State Troopers Association. That's a great endorsement. The International Association of Firefighters, which represents the firefighters and paramedics. And the Pennsylvania Pro-Life Federation, because I believe that all life is to be respected and honored. So on May 21st, I would ask for your vote, and thank you again for allowing me to speak this evening.
Well, I appreciate the other candidate that took the time, and I have one question or one observation, and that is, as a district attorney, you're focused on gathering the data to get a conviction. When you're a judge, you're sitting here listening to both sides, and you have to weigh both sides to determine what is right for that particular accused. That being the case, sometimes you're going to make the decision, while at other times it's being charged to a jury. So how do you reconcile becoming somebody to make a decision based on both arguments when your career is focused on getting a prosecution?
Good question. So the Superior Court actually is an error correcting court. So what it's doing is looking at your local county courts and making sure that they properly apply the law and the Constitution to the facts at hand. And it's important to know that even though I was an elected district attorney, it is very important to be fair and make sure that there's equal justice for everyone. And so you should know that I've also done criminal defense work too. So I've been on both sides of the aisle. I also think that it's important that you elect someone with integrity, somebody who is going to be unbiased and give everyone their fair day in court. I am that candidate, and so I would ask for you to vote for me for that reason as well.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Warren. That was a presentation we were waiting to hear, and she answered our question. And I would also like to Proto. Thank you very much. Okay. Moving right along. We have several candidates there that announced, but only one candidate that chose to attend tonight's meeting and tell us what we need to hear. So with that, I would like to call Mr. Graham to the podium to express his view of why he's running for mayor. What does that mean? Mr. Graham is not here? Going once, going twice? No, Mr. Graham? Okay. Well, that's fine. I'll help you with my schedule. With that in mind, we're going to move right into the Republicans running for county commissioner. Again, I would mention the ground rules. The same apply, but yellow flag if we're running, your time is up on the answer to the question, and the red flag means you extended the time limit. I will again select the candidates who answer the question and let the other candidates respond with any added comments if they wish. So with that in mind, we have Michael Rivera. Is he here? I would appreciate if Forum would come up front here and save us some time. That was my plan. I guess my colleagues failed to implement it. And Mr. Joe Ruderl is also a challenger. Mr. Christian Leinbach, an incumbent. And Mr. Mark Scott, also an incumbent. Testing. Okay.
That's the reason why.
We were first class, so. We're back to second class. We'll give it a try. Anyway, first thing we're going to do is allow all four candidates Each will get a 2-minute opening statement. And I'll start with Mr. Rivera and go right down from there to Mr. Rudero, followed by Mr. Leinbach and Mr. Scott. And since we have one mic apparently,
Good evening. Come on, let's try that one more time. Good evening. Good evening. Very good. My name is Michael Rivera, running on the Republican candidate, and I'm running. For those of you that don't know, I'm running as a team with Christian Leinbach. We're running together, and we'll get into that a little bit later as to why we're running together and why it's important for us to run as a team. But I'm a resident of Berks Township. I have a wife who this year will be married 25 years, 2 kids. They attend Schuylkill Valley High School. And the reason I'm running is because I've lived in Berks County for about 23 years now. And Berks County is a beautiful place to live. There's beautiful people here. There's a lot to do. You can go from the city out into the farmland within 10, 15 minutes. There's a lot of history here. We have the Jazz Fest. So there's really a lot of things going on. And Berks County is in a good financial place right now. Taxes have been kept at bay. We just got the new bond rating. So we are in a decent financial situation, but there's still a lot of things that need to get done. We need to focus and not say because we're in a good position now, that's where we want to stay. We want to keep on bettering the county, and we need to look at the future so it continues to grow, so it continues to get better for our children and for our grandchildren as well. We need to understand that although we're doing good, we compete with other counties such as Lancaster County and Lehigh County for jobs, for businesses, for people that are moving into the area to live. And we need to make sure that we're in a position that when they're coming to this area or deciding on the area, that when they look at our county, Berks County, and the surrounding counties, that they make a decision for Berks County based on our economy, based on our educated workforce, based on our low taxes. So they would have many reasons to come here rather than going into other areas. And that's why I'm running, because I want to make sure that we can continue to make Berks County and Reading even better together. Thank you.
Good evening. Joe Morell. I wanted to just say the last time I was before the Berks County Patriots was November or December of 2016. I came before this body as the chairman of the Republican Party right after President Donald Trump was elected our president. I came in thanking the Patriots for all their help in helping to get Donald Trump elected. So it's great to be back. It's been a little bit since I've been here. I've been married for just about 27, going on 28 years to my wife Claudia. We have 6 beautiful children, 4 boys and 2 girls. So they're the oldest son is he's in Texas. The other children are fairly local yet, so we're thrilled. I'm also a small business owner. I own Bell Ace Hardware in Trexlertown. I've been going into my 30th year as a small business owner. I really have spent my life serving people. I've served our customers and my customers at the store. And I've also gotten involved in local government. I have about 18 years of community and local government experience. I got involved when I moved to Maiden Creek and started out on the vacancy board, planning commission, was elected auditor, also was elected to the board of supervisors, which I currently serve. I'm in my last year of my 2nd term. They're 6-year terms. So I have small business experience and I have local government experience, and I believe that our responsibility, our biggest responsibility, is to serve our communities, and that's the greatest thing we can do. And so unlike, I did not have the opportunity to serve in the military, although I believe that my service to my community is certainly, doesn't compare to those that served in the military, but it's my way of giving back. So, Joe Rutherford, thank you.
It's very good to be here again with all of our friends here at the Berks Patriots. I was a little late tonight. I was busy trying to read through the Mueller report. Not really. I was actually at another event, but that was the big news that came out today. It'll be interesting to see how everybody reads both sides of the Morell report. Michael Rivera and I are running as a team. I approached Mike last fall. At that point in time, Commissioner Scott was not running for re-election. I felt it was important to find someone who was a true conservative that was committed to work full-time. I need a full-time partner in the Commissioner's office. Commissioner Scott, over the last number of years, has been a part-time commissioner, and frankly, as recently as January, he's complained that we as commissioners don't get paid enough at $93,000+ a year. We are between the 5th and 6th highest paid county commissioners in the Commonwealth. We're the 7th largest county. Our theme is together, making Berks even better. And there's 3 things that we're focusing on. Number 1, spending. Spending is an issue you have to keep your eye on the ball all of the time. That is the issue that if you lose control of your finances, eventually it drives every decision. Berks is in the best financial situation it's ever been with a AAA stable outlook bond rating. We also believe that we need to look at keep taxes in check and well below inflation. We've done that, and we are focused on jobs and the economy. If you want more information, check out makingberksbetter.com. Click on Why Us, and we have a joint statement on a number of issues. Thank you.
Good evening, Patriots. I don't intend to engage in responding to Mr. Leinbach's surprisingly negative distortions, inaccuracies, and personal insults going forward. I'm running on my record, and I would like an opportunity to speak uninterrupted. I think civility is an important trait of American people. I'm County Commissioner Mark Scott. I'm a lawyer with a financial planning certificate, a degree in economics, work experience in banking and small business. I previously served as assistant county solicitor. Until the legislature changes the law, we are saddled with a county property tax. My priority as commissioner is and has been to find creative ways to minimize this tax. And to that end, I have for 2 decades diligently applied my financial and legal knowledge to reduce expenses and enhance non-tax revenue, all with considerable success. Some examples are in order. The pension fund refinancing that I proposed and that was implemented in 2012 has to date saved the county taxpayers $27.5 million. The recently concluded time labor negotiations, Berks time labor negotiations, that I initiated in early 2018 will save the county $2 million annually. These and other innovative proposals demonstrate my value, my long-standing value as commissioner. However, as much as I am a committed public servant, I am a mediocre retail politician. Rarely do I attend parades, ribbon cuttings, and other ceremonies. I don't have a big ego, and I'm not particularly fond of hearing myself talk. I focus on county business and leave the politics to others. So if you want results that benefit the taxpayer, I'm your man.
And it's even worse. We have now 4 candidates, moderated with 1 mic, but we'll have to keep passing back and forth. I'm going to start out, I'm going to skip a couple of softballs in the interest of time. If we get to them, fine, but may I start with one contentious situation that was touched on earlier, but I'm going to start by asking Mr. Leinbach to respond to this, and the others can jump in with follow-up. Again, there's an obvious problem with the county paying much of the bill for constables. A lot of reasons, of course, poverty comes into play. But some of these apparently come from abuse of the constable billing system, some constables walking away with quite a bit of money. As a commissioner, what can be done to change this practice and get the taxpayers out from under supplementing the cost of serving, the constables serving? Is it the fault of the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency and their reimbursement system? Is it the fault of the legislature for allowing the PCCD to run?
Yes, I believe there is. First of all, the president judge is the one that has unique authority to address this issue. Our district attorney and our Berks County sheriff have both spoken out, as I have, that there are some basic things we could do tomorrow. Number one, we need to eliminate constables from night court. They actually get paid fees taking people from central booking up to night court. That's all they're doing. We don't have any need to take people up to night court. We can do video hearings right from central booking, and we need no additional sheriffs. Number two, currently, warrants are issued to the sheriff's department for misdemeanors and felonies. These tend to be more dangerous potential criminals, and we have many of the constables picking up these individuals. We believe misdemeanor and felony warrants should exclusively go to the sheriff's department. They should pick these individuals up. The third area is a little bit more complicated, and has to do with the relationship between some MDJs and some of the constables. In the end, the president judge has had one meeting. At that meeting, he told me before the meeting, he didn't think there was really a problem. I told him there was. At the meeting, Sheriff Wickneck, John Adams were both there. They clearly said, yes, there's a major problem. And I will tell you, there was some real frustration. As a result, the PJ is scheduling a follow-up meeting. We will see when that meeting actually occurs. There are a number of dates that are out there right now. But if there is no viable action, I will be working with my colleagues to see what we can do as commissioners to address the issue.
I'm going to start this one off with Mr. Scott. Along with the airport, for one, based on the newspaper, tremendous amount of money needed to keep it going. Well, I'm not even sure it's ever been used anymore as public airport. I think it's just private planes taking off and landing. But setting that aside, or thinking about that, Berksheim refuses, I'm told, refuses private or insurance pay patients, contending that the employees or administrators do not want to deal with the complicated coding required to receive payments. By only accepting Medicare patients, which only pays a percentage of what insurance would cover, it seems that taxpayers are covering the balance. And how much money are we talking about? Is the county commissioners or Heim administrators policy as I prescribed it, and I don't even care to get into privatization versus public to help solve the problem. Start with Mark Scott on that.
Thank you. I have a long history in dealing with Berksheim, starting with when I was first elected and they wanted to build a facility that was 699 beds. That was our license years ago. Today, the Heim is 420 beds. I've met with private sector contractors to come up with a different approach to renovating. It was clearly an obsolescent Berksheim. And as a result of my conversations with private sector operators of nursing homes, I was able to convince my colleagues, A, that we should build an entirely new facility that is efficient, that would reduce labor costs dramatically, and it would cost a little bit more, but in the long run would save us money. And we did. With the help of Commissioner Ryder around 2002, we conducted a study to project what the long-term demand for the Heim would be. And we came up, erred on the side of conservatism, with 420 beds. Today, and since the Heim opened, we've been operating between 95 and 98% occupancy, which means the Heim is right-sized, it's
very efficient. And but for the problems with some very generous labor contracts, we would still be showing generous profits, and we wouldn't even need to consider changes in the Medicaid rates. I went to work analyzing the legal contracts, and I found, to my surprise, that there were aspects of the contracts that were distorted on the high side, that were not in evidence anywhere in the Commonwealth. And so I approached the unions quietly to see whether there would be any willingness at all to address these issues. Then wrote an in-depth analysis of the contract provisions, what they were worth, and what had to be changed in order for this line to break even on its own and not have to have continuing county subsidies. I did that, invited my colleagues to join with me. The rest is history. We negotiated a fair compromise. The unions gave up some of the outrageous aspects of their contract, and that's put $2 million in the bottom line of Berksheim, which is operating very well now. But Berksheim was in fact designed as a safety net for the indigent. And it's not Medicare, it's Medicaid, which is applicable to people with very limited means. 80% of our beds are dedicated to people who cannot afford care. Again, it's a safety net. The excess beds, whenever we can, we market them. And we're privileged to have a very high number of private pay beds, at $405 a bed. We're making money, but that's not our primary mission. Our primary mission is to provide that safety net and to have that 80% Medicaid beds. Now, as far as accepting patients, we break our backs to accept patients, and the private sector manager of the HIME, who took over for the government employee with my support, is doing a great job and has cut the admission time substantially, so we can move people into the HIME very quickly when they show an interest in showing up. That helps to facilitate that 98% occupancy rate that is so crucial to the financial performance of the HIME, and to keep it from becoming a tax burden to the people of Berks County. I am not aware of any major, any reluctance whatsoever to address any kind of paperwork regarding any potential resident of Berks HIME. We've become better over time. This is I'm sure that even my detractors will agree that Berks HIME is an efficient, one of the best nursing homes, probably the best government-owned nursing home in Pennsylvania.
I'd like any of the three 1-minute follow-up, and then we'll move on to the next question.
Yeah, real quickly. The reason someone would not be accepted for private pay, 2 reasons. One, we may not accept their insurance. We had a case like that recently. I reached out to Terry Brennan, the CHR administrator, and we recently voted to accept that additional insurance. Number 2 is a waiting list. My mother-in-law needed dementia care back in 2009, and there was no bed available. And she ended up starting at the Laurel Center. They couldn't keep her, ended up in Pottsville at the Providence House. When they could no longer take care of her, she went to the Ashland Hospital, and it wasn't until that point that a bed opened up, even as a commissioner. There's no special deals. So there is a waiting list. But most importantly, the HIME is a continuation of the almshouse that used to be down in Shillington starting back in the mid-19th century. It is about those that are most needy among us. And 80% of the beds right now are Medicaid beds. If you have 2 people coming in for 1 bed and one is Medicaid and one's private pay, the Medicaid bed is what the facility is for. If we were going to have 90% private pay, then we might as well privatize the nursing home, because there's no value for it for the most needy in our community. Finally, the Berksheim doesn't take 1 cent of your property tax at this point in time.
Either of you 2 have any 1-minute comment? Okay. Want to add to it?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. I just wanted to to add that, of course, both city commissioners have all the inside baseball on the Heim and really have a full understanding. I'm certainly trying to do my best to understand that equation. I realize that the Heim falls under a proprietary account with the county, which means it kind of runs in a business-like model. I look at my skill set as a business owner. I certainly would be willing to look at all options to make sure that the longevity of the Heim is solid and sound moving forward, and doing my very best as your county commissioner to make sure that there is little to no tax burden on the residents of Berks County. Thank you.
And I'll take a minute here, and just add in that Commissioner Linebacker has done a great job in getting this done, but there's something else that all of us can do as well to make sure that the Heim stays in county hands without having that tax increase, which would affect everyone. And that's contacting your legislators and asking them to help increase the Medicaid refund rate. Reach out to them, have that conversation with them. It's two things, the Medicaid refund rate and also the intergovernmental transfer. Reach out to your local senator, your House representative, and talk to them about that. Tell them that you want the county to be able to keep the Berks Heim without having that tax increase, and that's the way that it can be done.
I don't think there's a problem at Berks Heim now. We've had put $2 million back on the annual financial statement. And it'll be several years until it starts to show a loss. I don't have an interest in approaching the state and saying, give us more money when we don't need it. Our state taxes are important too. And I'm not going to be a party to an effort to increase the size of state government and scapegoat state government and make it grow so I can claim that I kept county government small. I'm interested in keeping all government small and all taxes low, including state taxes. So if we don't need money because of our success delivering the unions, why on earth would we go there and ask them for even more money so they can what? Raise your state taxes? Drain your state reserves? That makes no sense.
I'm going to respond to that. Here are the facts. The last 12 years, the Medicaid reimbursement rate to county nursing homes has increased 7.7%. Basic inflation rate over that period of time has been between 19 and 20%, healthcare inflation at 30%. When I took office, there were almost 40 counties with county nursing homes. Today, there are 17 counties with county nursing homes. Believe me, the driving issue is the Medicaid reimbursement rate because it's county nursing homes that provide the bulk of Medicaid resident beds. If you look at Berks Heim, 420 beds, about 80% of them are Medicaid right now. There are more Medicaid beds in the Berks Heim than the rest of the county nursing homes combined. That is the issue. It represents 80% of our revenue.
Well, it took a while, but I finally created debate here. I slipped up. I should have each one time through, but anyway, we balanced it. Let's cool off a little bit and ask Mr. Rivera a question here as a non-incumbent. Curiously, Praying Eagle looks like right now it's on thin ice, and let's suppose it didn't survive. And it's one of the reasons, of course, the internet and decreased population. Subscription, I think it's down around 37,000. What impact do you see if we lose our local newspaper to let folks know what you guys are doing, tour force? Give a perspective on that.
Sure. I believe losing the Eagle and the radio station as well would have a huge impact on us. Local news is very important for the area. They report on things that are happening here right now. They report on elected officials. They report on what's happening at the county level, at the local level as well. And it actually helps keep the accountability within elected officials. So I think it's very important that we do have a local news outlet media, and it would definitely be unfortunate if we would lose it. I know there's a lot of people working to be able to keep it. To what extent, I don't know, but hopefully something will be able to work out so that we will be able to maintain a local media presence here.
I know change is difficult, especially when you get to be my age, but I will tell you that I'm very reluctant to argue with the free market. The free market is responding to technological changes that allow the delivery of news and information in different ways, cell phones, whatever. I'm reluctant to use those. I like paper in my hand. I like reading a hard book. But I'm not going to be the wave of the future. When we attempt to interfere in the free market, and the free market is saying that communications is going to evolve, I think we're making a mistake. I believe in reasonable regulations, but I do not believe that we should be in any way intervening in the evolution of the delivery of news in this county, nationally, or elsewhere. When you fight technology, you inevitably lose.
I just wanted to add my thoughts as well. As a small business owner, it's obvious, and I am not running, I'm running on my own merit, I'm not running as a team, but I wholeheartedly agree with Commissioner Scott and his comments on that. The free market needs to take care of things. If you're not producing a product that people want, then you go out of business. Now, I don't know the inner workings of why the Eagle's where it is, and it's certainly tragic from the sense of the long tradition that the newspaper brings to this area. And absolutely, it is great in its coverage of local. As a township supervisor, they've always been good at covering what's going on locally. But I have to wholeheartedly agree with Commissioner Scott, not only on that point, but also his point about the Berks time and the additional going after the federal and state cheese, if you will, to help solve a local problem. I have an issue with that as well, so thank you.
I'm going to touch on the paper. I've had several conversations with individuals that work at the paper. I think one of the big things that has happened is the Reading Eagle's forgotten what their business really is. Their business is content and reporting. You have a photographer here, you have a reporter here. That's the real business and the real value of the Reading Eagle. If you look at where the debt is, the debt is tied to an antiquated method of delivering that content. It's tied to printing presses. It's tied to the building that the printing presses are in. If the Reading Eagle is going to survive long term, it's going to survive because new, hopefully local owners understand that content is king, that covering the local news is what matters, that relying on old systems of investing in presses and printing is the anchor that's dragging it down. It's not the radio station, it's not the reporters, it's not the photographers, it's that they are too married to the old technology of communication, which is ink on paper.
Okay, hope our reporter got that. I'll be in the paper tomorrow. I'd like to give the challengers every opportunity to be first on a question. And having said that, Mr. Rutero, as a township supervisor, I would think you could probably do some good on this one. But thinking of regulations and mandates, and I know in my township we have the EPA demanding a lot of things on runoff water and screens and sewers and all of the above, and somebody's going to pay for all this. And I want to know, who do you think ought to be paying for these mandates? When they come down from an unelected body like the EPA and turns it over to the township, which is an elected body, or a county, and they're stuck with the bill, there's got to be some fairness here somewhere. In addition to that, you have all these regulations that have been going on and adding to. Is there any way the county commissioners, or even as your township supervisor, can review all of these regulations and see if we can't get rid of some, or put the pressure on government to get rid of some, instead of keep absorbing? I'll start with you, Joe, and let the others chime in. But
Thank you. Absolutely, as a township supervisor, we are at the lowest level. I mean, it all pushes down to us. Harrisburg passes legislation, or if the regulatory agencies pass regulations, they trickle on down to the municipal level, in which we're forced to enact whatever's been required of us to enact. It is something that needs to stop. We can't afford it. Townships, for example, our number one responsibility are our own local roads, right? So you look at our roadways, and you look at the cost to repave a road with an 1.5-inch wearing course, right? It's $150,000 a mile is about what that costs for a township to road. That would be about 3 times that amount, probably $350,000, $400,000 a mile. In Maiden Creek Township, we have roughly $300,000 to $400,000 that we're able to use on local road work. So we can really do about 2.5 miles of township road. That's where our dollars, and that's where we need to be focused on, is our communities and making sure that we can afford to perform the functions of local government without all these mandates that push down and force us to do additional and spend additional money or raise your local taxes. MS4, by the way, is another mandate from the DEP that's coming down, and it's a mess. And if we don't stop it and we don't push back, and you hope every time the governorship changes, maybe they'll take a softer approach to it. But that is, unfortunately, Harrisburg has a lot to do with what is forced down onto the local level.
I just say that I was a township supervisor for 6 years. It's a hell of a difficult part-time job, and I commend Mr. Rutterow for shouldering that responsibility. It's very often the case that we tend to blame the wrong people in government. In the county, as well as the townships, a lot of the mandates obviously trickle down from the state, and the state experiences trickle down from the federal government. It's important to note that much as we think county commissioners are a big deal, township supervisors like Mr. Rutterow, myself, and others who serve at the local level have much more power than the county does over land use. Local officials control zoning, not the county. And the county has a planning commission that advises and makes recommendations but has no enforcement power. So these local races are very important. I can't tell you how many times my office gets calls from people all the time. Gee, I'm so upset at what's happening in my township. Well, call your township official. Why can't your commissioners change? You're higher up on the food chain. No, we're not when it comes to land use. So keep that in mind, and be sure to vote for your local officials when their offices come up. It's very important.
I'd just like to add that I feel if something is important enough to mandate, it should be important enough to fund as well. So I think when we are working with the state or the federal level that is mandating something, that they fund it as well if they're going to mandate it.
I think it's important that we take the opportunity when we have it to fight some of these mandates. Several years ago, under the Obama administration, EPA offered new Waters of the U.S. regulations. I, through the National Association of Counties, had the opportunity to go to the U.S. Senate and testify against some of the language in those regulations. If those regulations had gone through, they would have cost counties, and in Pennsylvania, especially municipalities and farmers, untold dollars, because it would have brought areas, ditches along the sides of the road, ditches on farmers' paths, under the control of Army Corps and EPA. We fought that at the national level. Not only did we fight it, in February of 2017, shortly after President Trump was elected, I was invited to Washington, D.C., to the White House, to be there when President Donald Trump signed an executive order removing Waters of the U.S., and I recently, in March, sat and chaired a committee down in Washington with about 30 other county leaders, meeting with U.S. Army Corps and EPA to rewrite the Waters of the U.S. rule, and it is being rewritten right now, and counties have a major place at the table, and because of my involvement in the National Association of Counties, Berks County's played a role at that table. That's how you fight unfunded mandates.
Okay, next one, I could answer in 30 seconds. I would encourage each of you four to try to do the same. However, pro-life, pro-choice, defund Planned Parenthood or not defunded? At what point is abortion acceptable in your eyes, if at all?
I'm 100% pro-life, and while I don't have the ability to defund Planned Parenthood, I do not believe Planned Parenthood should receive one dime of taxpayer money.
I am pro-life as well, and also believe that Planned Parenthood should not receive tax money either.
I started out pro-choice when I was in my 20s. As I've grown older and wiser and gained more perspective, I'm definitely pro-life at this point. And I take it one step further when it comes to Planned Parenthood. My mother, who died in November of last year, was a very liberal, well-intentioned woman. I loved her very much. We disagreed politically a lot. My mother had a revocable trust. I was the trustee when she became incompetent. I've consulted with a lawyer, my mother's lawyer, about my powers of attorney in my capacity as trustee, and was informed that I had the ability to change certain designations in her will, or in the trust, with its list of beneficiaries upon her death, one of which was a very large contribution to Planned Parenthood. Needless to say, I got rid of that and amended it.
As the father of 6, I am 100% pro-life. I also agree that there should be no tax dollars that go to Planned Parenthood. And I really don't think that any private dollars should go there either. When you're killing innocent, unborn children, it's wrong, period.
Okay, there's 3 or 4 different perspectives for this question, but may I ask, the concern about pressing problems in the county where there's infrastructure or capital projects necessary, looking at from your perspective, what do you see as a major need coming forward? And what kind of dollars are we talking if we implement those needs? And I'll go right down the line again.
I don't think there's any question the biggest issue that we're facing is the future of the Berks County Jail. The costs there range anywhere from estimates, anywhere from $100 to $150 million. We don't want to make the same mistake that was made back in around 1992 when we put an addition on a 1933 jail. We're looking at solutions right now. The one that I prefer the most is having a developer design, build, own the jail and lease the building back to the county. I think that has some very real possibilities. I've looked at privatization. I visited the only private jail in Pennsylvania, which is run by the GEO Group in Delaware County. I was not impressed. I've looked across the country. There are very few county jails that are privately run, and I do not believe there's a significant savings there, nor do I believe it is wise to give a core function of county government in running a jail. That's the responsibility. The Berks time is not a responsibility, but a county jail is. I believe we need to keep that in county control.
I have to agree with Commissioner Linebaugh that one of the major issues affecting the county economically is the county jail and what's going to be done there. I think we need to look at all the options and not only look at what it'll cost now, but what would be the long-term effect, 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, and what would be the best option based on that. I also agree that the county jail should remain in county hands. It is a core function of the county. I believe that we should keep it in county hands as well. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad to know that the team is going to keep on doing the same old, same old. I'm going to tell you something. You're not going to cut your taxes. You're not going to contain the cost of government. Keep doing the same old thing. Just because we're for I don't know how many years, 100 years, have operated our own jail, and not terribly well, I might add, if you knew all the facts and have time to give them all to you. I think it's time to evaluate a different approach. That's the only way you can really make changes in government, is to shake things up and try things that are different. Delaware County did it. They're happy. I too visited Delaware County. Their jail, I think, runs better than ours. I took the initiative to bring a private sector representative from Core Civic, the other competitor of Geo Group, into my office. We sat down with an HR director, with the budget director, with the CAO, the top brass, and this guy laid out what they could do. Let me tell you something, folks. When you specialize, again, I'll go back to my background in economics and business. When you specialize, you tend to be good at something. When you're a county and you do 40 or 50 different things, we are just a holding company providing very diverse, unrelated services. You tend not to be good at any of them. Government is not generally good at anything it delivers, with the possible exception of some things in law enforcement. So I believe we should take a look at the private sector as an alternative to what we have. What do we have? We have 2 unions, one of which is the Teamsters, the most acrimonious, litigious union in the history of Berks County. We have correctional officers making $120,000 a year. We have an overtime system and a contract that is so rigged that it allows you, the taxpayers, to be exploited every damn day by the Teamsters Union. And I'm surprised that a Republican colleague wouldn't even consider looking at a different option offered by the private sector. I'm not in love with government. I'm not in love with the core functions of government. I want it to be an absolute minimum, and I want it to run like a top if possible. And I'm open to looking at private sector people. I'll tell you what, you in your lives as homeowners, you outsource things every day. You don't, when you have a plumbing problem, fix the plumbing or the electric. You call a contractor. Why? They're more efficient. They do a better job. We need specialization, and specialization is what made this country, this economy great. When we operate all these diverse functions as a county, I tend to believe no matter how well we want to do them well, we don't. We need to look at the private sector as an alternative. I'll tell you something from dealing with the nurses, who are much better people than the Teamsters. When you put the specter of privatization on the table, that gets the attention of the unions. When I, 2 years ago, I'm frustrated, proposed that we look at privatizing the jail, the HR department called me up and said, "You'll never believe this. The unions are all of a sudden being very nice. They're dropping their lawsuits. They're not filing grievances. They're scared to death." Or I could use another term, that you guys are going to privatize the jail. We got their attention. If for no other reason, we should look at a non-binding proposal from the private sector to operate our jail and measure that against what we can do ourselves and see if there's an opportunity for savings. If you don't ask the question in government about whether or not you can save money, then I don't think you're doing your damn job. Full-time, part-time, I don't care.
That's a hard act to follow. And I will just say that I am, as a business owner, every day thinking outside the box and trying to solve problems. And a lot of times those problems can be solved by taking different looks and not necessarily the same old approach over and over again. I don't have all the inside baseball with respect to the prison. I do know that it's a concern. I've been attending the commissioner meetings for over a year, and I do continuously hear that there's concerns about the cost and what to do there. I can assure you as a business owner and someone who looks at it as a problem solver, I will look at all options that make sense and at that time be able to make the best decision. If another area, and if I misunderstood the question, I just wanted to touch on, I think in Berks County too, I said, I think that we have challenges with our transportation system, our network. 422 and 222 are clogged arteries, and I think that has a negative impact on the economy of Berks County, that if we can fix those, and if we can work to fix those, that will help make Berks County more vibrant and a better economy for Berks County. Now, the challenge is that the money that Berks County receives in funding for roadways is 65 to 70 million a year. And that sounds like a lot of money, but I had previously stated the cost to repair 1 mile of township road. So you look at the new roundabouts that came in at Richmond Township, that's $7.5 million is what that costs. The road construction that they're proposing for 222 through Maiden Creek Township, the widening is $18 million. Now you look at the connecting from that point above Schaefer Road to the Kutztown bypass, $38 million. Then you get on the other side, the north side of 222, and you come to Long Lane, $7.5 million for a roundabout there, and then from there to the Lehigh County line, another $38 million. $650 million is needed to repair 422. The infrastructure's falling apart. We have to do a better job of getting our legislators, both federally and state legislators, to understand that we need to make our roadways a #1 priority, period. If we can fix our roadways and if we can get everyone rowing in the same direction, I believe that will help make Berks County more prosperous than it's ever been. Thank you.
We're supposed to be out of here by 8:30. If you guys can hang in a few minutes, we're getting some good answers, good questions. Let me try to finish off with this one in particular because it's coming. Marijuana. Will you support recreational marijuana? We look at marijuana possibly as a gateway drug. We look at marijuana as an expensive amount of money for police to handle the offenders with small amounts. On the other hand, should they be allowed to have any amount of marijuana, recreational marijuana is illegal? Where do you stand on the issue? Let me start at the other end this time. Mike.
I am 100% against recreational marijuana. Father of 6 children, it's certainly a concern. I am also, my degree is in criminal justice from Westchester University, and I know, and having spent time in that field of study, that marijuana tends to be a gateway drug to other drugs. I just cannot support recreational use. I have come to accept medical marijuana because I do believe there are some benefits. As long as it is tightly held and it's under a doctor's care, then I'm tolerant to that. But any recreational marijuana, I am not for.
This topic is near and dear to my heart. I find it ironic that we're all worried about mental health and the growth of the jail population because of mental health issues, yet we know from the scientific research that marijuana causes mental health issues, lasting mental health issues, starting with young people. And if you legalize marijuana, you might as well say that you're in favor of more people dying. People dying because of people who are high driving into them, or just young people graduating from marijuana to harder drugs. I meet with the district attorney detectives in the elevators every day. And I've asked them to a man, what do you feel about marijuana? Is it a gateway drug? Absolutely yes. No doubt about it. And everybody wants to decriminalize things and give everybody a little smack on the wrist if they break the law or whatever. We have a society that continues to move away from having consequences for improper behavior because we're afraid to stand up for anything. It's the effect of the 1960s moral relativism BS that has sent this country on a road to decline ever since. I believe in keeping the marijuana illegal, even small amounts, because we need a deterrent effect. There are people who will try it, who wouldn't try it if it were illegal. And I don't want to sentence those people to a life of misery, or their parents. Now I'll get personal again. I had a cousin who was a heavy drug user, and he dropped dead buying a six-pack in a convenience store at age 46 because he was a cocaine user. I remember sitting across the table after everyone went to bed after Thanksgiving dinner, saying, "Would you like to try some cocaine?" No, and you want to stop yourself. Okay? There are consequences to drug use, and we can't trivialize it. And I won't be part of that. No way.
I have to agree with them. I'm against recreational use of marijuana for a few reasons. One, right now they're putting it in candy and brownies, which makes it a lot more accessible to younger kids. They think they're eating a regular brownie or regular candy, and it has marijuana in it, and that's something I don't agree with. The other thing, compared to the use of alcohol, I can sit down in my house and have a glass of wine, and it's not affecting my two kids that are in the house with me. Now, if I'm sitting in my house and I'm smoking marijuana, it will have, the smoke will then affect my kids, or even out in a public place as well. I can sit there and have a drink of alcohol, and it's not affecting anyone else, that alcohol, but if I start smoking marijuana there, that smoke then affects the rest of the people, that it be in a playground, be it around the school, be it where there be. So I'm against the legalization of marijuana.
I completely oppose the legalization of recreational marijuana. I have a number of friends that are county leaders in Colorado, and we've discussed this on numerous occasions. And let me highlight two major problems. Number one, the recreational marijuana is not so much about smoking pot like it was back in the 60s. Number two, the potency of marijuana today is dramatically greater than the marijuana of the 60s. But here's the big item: edibles. That is the driver for recreational marijuana. Chocolate, cookies, a variety of things. Early on, Colorado had very few rules, and a person would get a cookie, a marijuana cookie, and not realize that there were 4 servings. And there's a famous case where one man ate one entire cookie, jumped out of his balcony, and killed himself. Edibles are a huge problem also because they attract children. They give this idea, it's a little bit like the old candy cigarettes, except these things are potent. And finally, what I hear from Colorado is there's a huge problem in the increase of DUIs, especially with young people, and there is no sobriety test that a police officer can give on the spot. To do the test, they have to make a decision that they're sending this person to the hospital to draw blood. It is very complicated. I finally want to recommend an article. How many of you have heard of the Hillsdale College? Great organization. They have a publication that I get called, I call it Imprimis. And there's an article in the January 2019 issue called Marijuana, Mental Illness, and Violence. It's by Alex Berenson. I highly recommend that you read that. It will give you some of the scientific detail on the link between marijuana usage and mental health issues.
Okay, folks. I guess, inappropriate as it might sound, that fellow that jumped out the window after eating a cookie, is that where the phrase tough cookie came from? Okay. Well, I have a lot more questions, folks. Unfortunately, we're out of time. However, after the primary is over, 2 of you folks are going to be back in October, and you're going to get some questions you didn't have tonight. But I certainly appreciate the time and effort you put in to provide us the information we're looking for. We're going to allow a closing statement. I'd like to hold it to a minute, but if it runs a little over, fine. But I want each one to offer a closing statement tonight before we wrap this up. Let's start with the challengers.
First of all, I want to thank you for being here tonight, for your interest in learning what the candidates stand for, because it's important when you go out and vote that you understand who you're voting for and what's important for them and what they believe in. So I appreciate you being here tonight. Like I said, I will work hard. I'm running as a team with Christian Lineback here, Commissioner, because we feel that there are three things that are important for the county. There are many other things, but the three main ones are the economic development, and bringing jobs to the area, making sure that there are people that are able to work in those jobs because we have the proper workforce development. Also, we want to keep spending at bay as well. We need to look at the spending of the county and see what areas can be minimized, what can be done differently to make sure that the spending remains down. And something else that it's not a function of the county, but something that we will work with our state legislator and the state senate, is to reduce the school property taxes, which is a huge burden on many people within the county, especially after you've paid off your house, you're still renting it because you still have that huge tax bill. I appreciate you listening to us, and thank you very much.
Okay, just to say that I am pro-life, I'm pro-Second Amendment, I'm pro-family, I'm pro-business. I have business experience of 30-plus years in the private sector. I sign the front of the paychecks, folks. I know all about taxes. I just paid my estimated taxes on Monday. So I am very, very careful. I don't like spending my own money. I certainly don't like spending our money. And I mean that as the taxpayer. I'm very careful. I've always been a good steward of the taxpayers' money. I'm for small government. I'm for transparency in small government. I am the kind of person that as a voting record, I'm conservative. I have a 12-year voting record on the Board of Supervisors that's open for inspection. You can go to the website, you can click on the minutes, and you can learn as much as you'd like about my positions and what I stand for in making sure that we are able to not take your hard-earned money and waste it. And I think that as a government, serving in government is my way to give back to my community. I would ask that, I am not running on a team, I'm running on my own merits. My merits are there for examination. I would ask humbly for your consideration to be one of your Republican votes on May 21st, and I can assure you that I will do my very best that I can to make sure that your government at the county level is run as efficient as it can possibly be.
Well, I'm going to ditch what I plan to say. I'll just say this. I learned a long time ago that government has the ability to drastically limit your personal liberty. They can confiscate your property, they can confiscate your estate after you've worked a lifetime to amass a fortune, or take it away from you in debt. I witnessed that personally with my grandfather. And that changed my life and made me interested in public service, in addition to which I care about the average guy in the street who has the ambition to become something better. I'm less inclined to serve those who make poor decisions and want to be on the dole for us to support them. I have a lot of passion, as you may have seen tonight, for this job. I was urged to run again because people have seen that undiminished passion in me. I have a lot to contribute. The people who called me said, we need you on the board. You're the most steadfast conservative we have. Now, I'm not a grandstander. I don't travel all over the state, and that's the right of other commissioners to do. I don't contest it. But my contributions are by keeping my nose to the grindstone with respect to what my real job is. Commissioner is a job, to be well performed and nothing else. I don't bring a lot of ego to this job, but I bring a lot of accomplishment. If you look at my record, you'll see that that's the case. I'm older, I'm wiser, and I have perspective, but I have the same passion, and I ask for your support.
Thank you again to the Berks Patriots for hosting this event. I've been here for many different events, sometimes to speak, sometimes to sing, and sometimes just to watch and listen. I love our country. I love Berks County. And I enjoy serving as your public servant as a county commissioner. I hope tonight you learned a little bit about us as candidates, a little bit about me, but I would encourage you, if you want to learn more, please go to our website, makingberksbetter.com. Click on Why Us, and you can find out where we are on issues that are important to you. And if you are passionate about the Rivera-Leinbach team, and you want to help make Berks better, please click on Involve, sign up, and get involved in this campaign and help spread the word that conservative principles are the principles that can make Berks County and Reading even better. Thank you, and God bless you.
Okay, I guess I had two things to be concerned with what's going on tonight. First of all, fairness. I tried to divide the amount of time that every candidate, both Republican and Democrat, had about equal time. If that happened, I got rid of one problem. Secondly, I made an effort to try to divide the questions where not always the same one would be the first one to answer the question. And especially, I try to create the questions, along with the help of others that wrote some, that we get the maximum amount of information out in the time allocated. I trust after this is over, the two left standing will come back in October and we'll explore some more issues. But as it were, I want to thank both all you folks for being here this evening. I appreciate you helping me make it a success, and I appreciate your time. Well, I would hope that we had another successful and hopefully informative campaign event. You've heard the candidates. Now you can make up your mind, your party's choice. And if there's more to be had, the candidates are welcome to stay as long as they wish. And I'll be here to turn out the lights after the last one leaves. If you don't vote in May, you wasted your night. Actually wasted our time. So with that in mind, your board in particular, our friend Ed Bender at the last minute agreed to wave the flags for us, and I appreciate that. I appreciate Joe Phillips and Donna Quinter, who spent a lot of time back and forth on the internet and trying to get addresses of candidates and then get commitments whether or not they're going to be here. But one way or the other, you got it all done. And after you're through here in the seats, go back and talk to your candidates. I'll call this forum basically finished tonight. Thank you for the evening, and as we say on Johnny Carson, here's Sam.
Thank you, Rod. Folks, just a few more minutes. We certainly want to thank all the candidates who came, and we'll see some of those back in October. A couple quick things. We have sale on hot dogs, 2 for 1. Also, just a reminder, May 5th, Right for Life rally, 2 o'clock at Berks Catholic. Also, Second Amendment, the next day, May 6th. Also, next month, we have a great meeting on socialism. If you want to have some details on that, please come to that particular meeting. Also, for those of you that were here last month, that Simon Grill was here. He was here tonight. I had a conversation with him. We're going to be trying to put something together that I think all of you will have an interest in. Okay, Ed, you did. Ed Ross signed up. Linda, come on. We're going to have the raffle. Yes.
Okay, tonight's drawing is $55 for our 50-50, and I think I'll have Shirley here in the front row singing for me because I can't go too far. Okay. 862725. 862725. Oh, no. It is Leon again. He is just lucky. I can't believe it. Yeah. 862725. We're not going to let him play.
One short political announcement. Monday is the last day to change your party. If you heard candidates tonight, they weren't in your party, and you want to vote for them, Monday's your last day to change your party and to vote for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Linda's going to close the meeting in prayer. Please quiet in the back. Quiet, please. Linda?
Quiet, please. Lord, watch over all of us on the way home and keep us safe. Remembering that you are the reason for this most holy season. Amen. Thank you all and happy.
Thank you. Don't forget, 2-for-1 sale on hot dogs, folks.